Imagine standing at the edge of a windswept plain, where the only sound is the whisper of grass brushing against weathered stones. Beneath your feet lie the hidden foundations of a city that once pulsed with life, markets buzzing with traders from distant lands, children laughing in courtyards, and the hum of a civilization at its height. Now it's gone, vanished, erased from maps, but not from memory. These lost medieval cities are more than just ruins. They're time capsules, each holding stories of triumph, tragedy, and the enduring mystery of human ambition. Today, we're embarking on a journey to uncover 30 of these forgotten places, where the past lingers like a half-remembered dream. Picture a world where entire cities could disappear, swallowed by the sea, buried by desert sands, or reclaimed by relentless jungles. These weren't just small settlements, they were thriving centers of culture, trade, and power. Vinter, the Atlantis of the Baltic, sank beneath the waves in a single night, its wealth and pride lost to legend. Timgad, Rome's African masterpiece, stood as a testament to imperial grandeur, only to be abandoned and forgotten for centuries. And Mahandraparvota, the Khmer Empire's mountain kingdom, lay hidden under dense Cambodian forests until modern technology revealed its secrets. Each of these cities has a tale to tell, and together they paint a vivid portrait of how even the greatest civilizations can fade into shadows. What draws us to these lost places? Maybe it's the haunting beauty of their ruins, or the unanswered questions they leave behind. Did the Norse settlers of Valsi simply walk away, or did something more sinister seal their fate? Why was the Silk Road's mighty Merv, once the world's largest city, reduced to rubble by Genghis Khan's armies? And how did Rungholt, the Atlantis of the North, vanish beneath the waves in a storm that still echoes in folklore? These stories aren't just history, they're mirrors reflecting our own fragility, our own fleeting grip on the world we build. So come with us as we step into the footprints of those who came before, tracing the outlines of cities that time forgot. By the end of this journey, you'll see the past not as a distant memory, but as a living, breathing presence, one that still has lessons to teach us today. The legend of Vinter begins with shimmering towers and docks piled high with amber, furs, and silver, a city so wealthy, its streets were said to be paved with gold. Traders from Scandinavia, Byzantium, and beyond crowded its markets, while its merchants grew fat on their greed. But according to folklore, that greed became their undoing. One stormy night, as waves clawed at the city's walls, the sea swallowed Vinter whole, punishing its people for their arrogance. To this day, fishermen along the Baltic coast whisper that on quiet nights, you can still hear the drowned church bells ringing beneath the waves. Archaeologists have long hunted for Vinter's remains, debating whether it was a real city or merely a cautionary myth. Some point to the island of Wallen in Poland, where excavations revealed a sprawling medieval port that matches descriptions of Vinter's grandeur. Others argue the city might lie farther west, buried under shifting sands off Germany's coast. The truth remains elusive, but what's fascinating is how Vinter's story transcends history. It's not just about a lost city, but about humanity's fragile relationship with nature. The tale warns that even the mightiest civilizations can be humbled by the elements, a lesson that feels eerily relevant in our age of rising seas and storms. Vinter's legacy lingers in art, music, and even political discourse, where it's invoked as a symbol of excess and downfall. But perhaps its greatest gift is the mystery itself. Unlike Pompeii or Atlantis, Vinter refuses to be fully unearthed, keeping its secrets just out of reach. That tantalizing uncertainty keeps historians and treasure hunters digging, and it's why the city's name still stirs the imagination centuries after its supposed demise. As we turn from the Baltic's misty shores, we carry with us the echoes of a city that may never fully be found or forgotten. Emperor Trajan never set foot in Timgad, yet his vision for this African city was so precise that its streets still follow the exact dimensions he decreed nearly 2,000 years ago. Rising from Algeria's arid plains like a mirage of order, Timgad was Rome's architectural manifesto in stone, a perfect square divided by arrow-straight roads intersecting at right angles, each block measured to the last foot. This wasn't just a military outpost, it was a deliberate display of imperial control, where retired legionnaires could stroll under triumphal arches engraved with the same precision as those in Rome itself. The city's theater seated 3,000, its library held scrolls from across the Mediterranean, and its public baths boasted intricate mosaics of sea nymphs, all proclaiming that even at the empire's edge, Roman culture thrived. But Timgad's fate holds an irony its builders never imagined. While Rome itself crumbled slowly, this African jewel was abandoned almost intact. Arab invasions in the 7th century didn't destroy it, they simply walked away, leaving the city to be buried under Saharan sands like a time capsule. When French archaeologists brushed away the dust in 1881, they found something extraordinary, a Roman city frozen mid-stride. Bakery ovens still held charred loaves. Dice lay scattered in taverns where soldiers once gambled. And most haunting of all, the library's empty niches bore scratches from the scrolls hastily pulled away, as if the last scholars hoped to salvage knowledge even as their world ended. What makes Timgad unforgettable isn't just its preservation, but what it reveals about Rome's genius for replication. Unlike Vinter's watery mystery, Timgad shows us the empire's blueprint literally. Its grid was copied from military camps, its temples mirrored those in Italy, and even its graffiti, "Live Happily," scrawled near the Forum, echoes Pompeian walls. This was globalization in stone, proving that Rome's power lay not just in conquest, but in convincing a retired soldier on the African frontier that he was still Roman. Yet the silence today is deafening. Walk those empty streets now, and you'll hear only the wind whistling through the arches where merchants once haggled over olive oil and ivory. Timgad's ruins force us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Civilizations don't always fall with a bang. Sometimes they simply fade, their libraries emptied, their baths drained, their people melting away into history. The Arabs who bypassed Timgad didn't burn it, they didn't need to. Without Rome's bureaucracy to maintain its aqueducts or legions to guard its gates, the desert did the rest. As we leave this sun-bleached masterpiece, its lesson lingers. The mightiest cities aren't lost to catastrophe alone, but to the slow unraveling of the threads that hold them together. Deep in the Cambodian jungle, where vines strangle ancient stones and roots twist through forgotten doorways, lies a city that defied memory for over 1,000 years. Mahandraparvota wasn't just hidden, it was erased, its temples swallowed by the forest so completely that even locals passed unknowingly over its buried causeways. Then, in 2012, lasers pierced the canopy from above, painting a picture no shovel could uncover. LiDAR technology revealed what generations of archaeologists had missed. A vast urban grid stretching 40 square kilometers across the Phnom Kulen Plateau, complete with temples, reservoirs, and roads radiating like spokes from a sacred mountain. This wasn't just a settlement, it was the Khmer Empire's first capital, a mountain kingdom that predated Angkor Wat by 300 years. What makes Mahandraparvota extraordinary isn't just its scale. but how it rewrites our understanding of Southeast Asia's greatest empire. Before its discovery, historians assumed the Khmer civilization sprang fully formed into grandeur at Angkor. Now we know their story began here, in this mist-shrouded highland. The city's layout aligned with sacred geography, its reservoirs mirroring celestial patterns, proves the Khmer's genius for hydraulic engineering didn't emerge overnight. They practiced here, perfecting the water management systems that would later sustain Angkor's million inhabitants. Yet by the 9th century, Mahandraparvota was abandoned, its stone towers left to the creeping embrace of fig trees. Why did a civilization walk away from such ambition? The jungle guards its secrets, but clues whisper through the ruins. Some scholars point to deforestation. The Khmer's own need for timber and farmland may have stripped the plateau bare, disrupting water supplies. Others suggest political shifts as power drifted toward the plains where Angkor would rise. But perhaps the most haunting theory is that Mahandraparvota never truly fell, it simply transformed. The same architects who honed their skills here may have taken those lessons downhill, building anew. Like a snake shedding its skin, the Khmer Empire left its old capital behind, though its spiritual heart still beats beneath the moss. Walking through Mahandraparvota today feels like trespassing in a dream. Fallen lintels bear carvings of Hindu gods half-eaten by lichen. Crumbled staircases lead to empty shrines where orchids bloom from cracked altars. The most poignant relic isn't stone, but earth itself. The vast Barray's reservoirs that once held monsoon rains now lie dormant, their precise edges blurred by centuries of leaf litter. This is nature's quiet revenge, reclaiming human arrogance one root at a time. Yet the city's legacy endures in unexpected ways. Local monks still tend a handful of cleared temples, weaving Mahandraparvota's memory into living faith, proving that even lost cities are never truly gone. They simply wait for the right moment to speak again. As we leave Cambodia's green shadows, we carry a question. How many other Mahandraparvotas lie beneath the world's forests, their stories suspended between memory and myth? The answer may rewrite history yet again, but for now, our journey turns northward to a very different kind of ghost city, one where Norse longships once rocked against icy shores, and whose abandonment remains one of history's most puzzling vanishing acts. Valsi's church rises from Greenland's rocky coast like a stubborn fist against time, its stone walls still standing shoulder high after 7 centuries of Arctic winters. This isn't just any ruin, it's the best preserved Norse structure in all of North America, the last physical witness to a colony that once numbered nearly 3,000 souls. The Greenland Vikings thrived here for 400 years, farming lush pastures now buried under permafrost, trading walrus ivory with European kings. Then around 1450, every settler vanished. The only clue, a lone entry in an Icelandic wedding record from 1408, describing a ceremony held in this very church. After that, silence. What happened at Valsi poses one of history's most tantalizing cold cases. Unlike Vinter's dramatic drowning or Timgad's slow fade, the Norse disappearance leaves no clear villain. Some point to the little ice age crops failed as glaciers advanced, sealing the fjords with impenetrable ice that cut off supply routes. Others blame conflict with the migrating Thule people, ancestors of modern Inuit, whose superior hunting technology may have overwhelmed the settlers. But the most haunting theory is simpler: isolation. As Europe's demand for walrus ivory dwindled, replaced by African elephant tusks, Greenland's economy collapsed. Ships stopped coming. The last Norse may have starved within sight of stored whale blubber, lacking the indigenous knowledge to utilize it. Walking through Valsi today feels like stepping into a paused moment. The church's mortarless stones, meticulously stacked in the Norse style, still align perfectly without a single crack. Beside it, faint outlines of longhouses trace familial plots, each dwelling sized to shelter a single extended family and their livestock through endless winter nights. Archaeologists found rusted iron nails from Bergen, shattered chess pieces carved from walrus tusk, even the bones of a bishop buried beneath the chancel. These weren't desperate outcasts, they were a devout, organized community that maintained European traditions to the bitter end. The real mystery isn't why Valsi failed, but how it lasted so long. Greenland's Norse clung to European farming methods despite a changing climate, refusing to adopt thule seal hunting techniques that might have saved them. Their stubbornness mirrors our own. How often do we cling to failing systems rather than adapt? As the Arctic thaws, Valsi's pastures are greening again, a cruel irony for those who couldn't wait out the cold. The church's endurance offers no answers, only a stark reminder. Civilizations don't always end with fire and sword. Sometimes they simply pack away their chessboards, close their church doors, and walk into the snow without looking back. From this frozen enigma, we turn to a very different kind of lost city, one that didn't fade quietly, but was erased in an explosion of violence, not by ice, but by the scorched earth wrath of history's most infamous conqueror. Where Valsi's end whispers, our next city's demise roared across the Silk Road, leaving ruins so vast they stunned even Marco Polo. Merv's story begins with water, an improbable oasis blooming in the Karakum Desert, where the Murgab River's lifeline fed orchards heavy with pomegranates and fields of saffron. By the 12th century, this shimmering mirage of greenery had grown into the world's largest city, a melting pot of 500,000 souls where Zoroastrian priests debated Islamic scholars, Nestorian Christians traded silk with Buddhist merchants, and astronomers in its famed observatory charted stars unseen in Europe for centuries. The city's great Kizkala fortress loomed over a skyline dotted with wind-catchers, ancient air conditioning towers, funneling desert breezes into marble palaces. Merv wasn't just wealthy, it was visionary. Its libraries held Chinese treatises on medicine alongside Greek philosophy, while its paper mills, the first outside China, supplied scribes from Constantinople to Calcutta. Then came 1221. Genghis Khan's youngest son Tolui demanded Merv's surrender, promising mercy. The city's governor hesitated just long enough for Mongol scouts to report the wall's weakest points. What followed wasn't just destruction, but erasure. For 7 days, every resident was marched onto the plains and slaughtered in methodical columns. The death toll so vast Persian chroniclers claimed even the Mongols grew weary. The libraries burned for weeks, their ashes drifting over the smoldering ruins of what had been Islam's eastern jewel. When Marco Polo passed decades later, he found only a scene of such devastation that no tongue could describe it. Yet Merv's ghosts refuse to stay buried. Walk its ruins today and you'll stumble over clues to its lost cosmopolitanism. A fragment of Christian fresco here, a scrap of Sanskrit manuscript there. Most poignant are the underground canals or kanats, miles of hand-dug tunnels that once carried water with mathematical precision. These veins of civilization outlasted even Genghis' wrath, though their makers vanished. Archaeologists still debate how a city so advanced fell so completely. Was it really just Mongol brutality, or had Merv's very success sown its downfall? The city's wealth depended on Silk Road trade, a fragile web vulnerable to shifting routes. When Persia fragmented and China turned inward, Merv's golden age was already fading. The Mongols merely wrote its epitaph. What lingers isn't just sorrow but wonder. In Merv's rubble, we see the paradox of all great crossroads cities. Their openness fuels brilliance but also fragility. The same trade routes that brought Persian poetry and Chinese gunpowder also carried invading armies. The intellectual freedom that birthed groundbreaking algebra also bred factions ripe for conquest. Today, as satellite images reveal Merv's true scale stretching 40 square kilometers with suburbs swallowed by dunes, we're forced to ask, could any modern metropolis survive such total collapse? The answer humbles. Merv's legacy isn't just a cautionary tale of violence, but a testament to how easily the threads of global connection can unravel. From this dust-choked graveyard of empires, we turn to a city that met a very different fate, not by sword or siege, but by the earth itself opening beneath its feet. No conqueror could claim this destruction. It was nature's turn to swallow a civilization whole. Rungholt's legend begins with a curse, or so the fishermen of North Frisia whisper. On stormy nights when the North Sea churns, they swear they can hear the drowned city's bells tolling beneath the waves, a ghostly echo of the night in 1362 when the Great Drowning swallowed an entire coast. Folklore paints Rungholt as a den of sin, its merchants so drunk on wealth they mocked God by pouring beer on church steps and forcing a priest to give last rites to a pig. Divine retribution came on January 16th, when a massive storm surge shattered dikes and drowned thousands in what's now Germany's Wadden Sea. For centuries, historians dismissed Rungholt as mere myth until a low tide in 1921 exposed the truth. The mudflats yielded more than stories. Archaeologists found a grid of wooden posts marking vanished streets, along with bronze cauldrons, intact wells, and the remnants of a tidal gate system far ahead of its time. These weren't the ruins of some fishing village. Rungholt was a sophisticated trading hub, its wealth built on fertile salt marshes and control of herring routes. LiDAR scans now reveal its full extent, a sprawling settlement with raised mounds for houses, connected by canals that funneled goods to waiting ships. The city's layout suggests a society that understood the sea's threat but gambled they could outsmart it. They lost. What makes Rungholt's fate so chilling isn't just the scale of destruction, but how quickly it mirrored our own coastal crises. The Groot Mandrank storm wasn't an isolated event. It struck during the Little Ice Age, when rising sea levels and sinking land made North Sea settlements increasingly vulnerable. Sound familiar? Modern climate scientists study Rungholt's collapse as a case study in failed adaptation. The city's dikes, though advanced, couldn't withstand the combined force of higher tides and stronger storms, a warning for cities like Miami or Rotterdam today. Yet Rungholt's legacy isn't just one of despair. Local farmers still use medieval turpen artificial mounds built to escape floods, while modern engineers study the city's tidal gates for inspiration. The bells may be silent, but their lesson rings clear. Civilizations that ignore nature's power do so at their peril. As we turn from these watery ruins, our next lost city faced a very different kind of engulfment, not by the capricious sea, but by the slow, suffocating embrace of the desert sands. Yuba's story begins with the scent of frankincense, a fragrance so precious, ancient empires measured wealth in its golden tears. For centuries, Arabian caravans whispered of a city buried beneath the sands of Oman's empty quarter, a place so rich its towers glittered with perfumed resin, yet so wicked it was swallowed by the earth as divine punishment. Scholars dismissed Yuba as fantasy, another Atlantis spun from travelers' tales, until 1992, when NASA satellites spotted something astonishing: faint wheel-shaped patterns in the desert, invisible from the ground but unmistakable from space. These were the ghostly tracks of camel caravans, converging like spokes on a buried hub. Archaeologists followed the trails to a site called Shisar, where the earth had collapsed into a vast sinkhole, its edges littered with incense burners and shards of pottery inscribed in lost languages. The Atlantis of the sands had been real all along. What makes Yuba extraordinary isn't just its rediscovery, but how perfectly its fate mirrors the legend. The Quran recounts how the people of Ad, often linked to Yuba, defied divine warnings until the ground gave way beneath them. Excavations revealed a grim truth. The city's limestone foundation sat atop a cavernous void, hollowed out by centuries of water erosion. When Yuba's inhabitants over-extracted groundwater to irrigate their famed frankincense trees, the land literally betrayed them. The collapse would have been catastrophic, whole neighborhoods vanishing into the abyss in moments, leaving survivors to scatter into the desert. Yet Yuba's legacy endured in oral tradition, passed down by Bedouins who avoided the cursed site for generations. Walking through Shissa today, you'll find more than just ruins. You'll touch a cautionary tale carved in stone. The eight-sided fortress walls, still partially standing, show meticulous dry stone masonry designed to withstand desert winds, not subterranean treachery. Inside, archaeologists uncovered a wealth of Roman glass and Indian beads, proof this was no isolated outpost but a linchpin of global trade. Frankincense from Yuba anointed Egyptian pharaohs and perfumed Roman temples. Its resin was worth more than gold by weight. But the city's greed for this white gold may have doomed it. As demand soared, Yuba's rulers likely overharvested the boswellia trees, destabilizing the fragile desert ecology that sustained them. The real lesson of Yuba isn't about divine wrath, it's about unintended consequences. Like Rungholt's drowned merchants, Yuba's elites mistook short-term abundance for permanent security. Modern satellite imagery reveals something haunting. The same underground aquifers that once fed Yuba's wells are now being drained by Oman's oil industry, an echo of ancient folly. Yet Yuba's rediscovery also offers hope. By blending Bedouin oral history with space-age technology, archaeologists proved that even the wildest legends can guide us to truth. As we brush the sand from these ruins, we're reminded that civilizations leave footprints far deeper than stone sometimes. They're written in the very earth that consumed them. From this desert parable, we turn to a city whose fall wasn't wrought by nature's vengeance, but by the relentless tremors of the earth itself, a capital whose splendor now lies scattered beneath the rolling hills of Armenia. Divin's grandeur once rivaled Constantinople, a city where Persian silks mingled with Byzantine gold, where the clang of coppersmiths' hammers blended with debates in its famed theological schools. Nestled in the Ararat plain beneath the watchful gaze of Mount Ararat, Armenia's ancient capital wasn't just a trade hub, it was a crucible of faith and power. By the 9th century, Divin's cathedral stood as the largest in Christendom, its dome a beacon for pilgrims navigating the Silk Road's eastern reaches. The city's bazaars overflowed with indigo from India, honey from Georgia, and the finest Armenian cochineal dye, a crimson so vivid, Persian shahs reserved it for royal robes. Then, in 893, the earth roared. A quake shattered Divin's walls, toppling its cathedral like a child's toy. Survivors barely had time to bury their dead before Arab armies swept in, looting what remained and carting off its treasures to Baghdad. What makes Divin's ruins so haunting isn't just their scale, though the site stretches over 50 hectares, but how thoroughly they encapsulate Armenia's cyclical tragedies. Walk the excavated sectors today, and you'll find layers of resilience and ruin. Beneath the cathedral's cracked foundations lie remnants of a Zoroastrian fire temple, evidence of the Persian rule that preceded Christianity. A few paces away, the mosaic floors of a 7th-century merchant's villa still shimmer with peacocks and pomegranates, their colors defiantly bright after 13 centuries. Yet dig deeper, and you hit the charred stratum marking the Seljuk Turks' sack in the 1100s, a disaster so complete that when Marco Polo passed through decades later, he mistook Divin's rubble for an old quarry. Archaeologists call Divin a palimpsest city, its stones scraped clean and rewritten by each conqueror. The Arabs turned its cathedral into a mosque, the Byzantines fortified its citadel against Kurdish raids. Even nature played its part. The nearby Geta River gradually shifted course, leaving Divin's once bustling port high and dry. Yet the city refused to die completely. In the shadow of the ruins, villagers still use medieval irrigation channels dug by Divin's engineers, while local potters replicate designs from shards found in the rubble. This isn't just a dead city, it's a ghost that lingers in the living. Divin's story forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Some cities don't fall once, but over and over. Earthquakes, invasions, dwindling trade routes. Each blow weakened Divin until it faded from memory, its name surviving only in dusty chronicles. Yet its legacy pulses in unexpected places. The intricate Kochkar's stone crosses carved by Divin's artisans inspired generations of Armenian craftsmen. Its scholars preserved Greek and Syriac texts later smuggled to Venice, saving fragments of classical knowledge. Even the city's destruction birthed something new. The survivors who fled westward founded Ani, the next great Armenian capital. Like a phoenix rising from ash, Divin's end became another beginning. As we brush the soil from these stones, we're left with a question: how do we measure a city's lifespan? By its peak, its ruin, or by the seeds it scatters? Divin's physical remains may lie broken, but its influence still whispers through Armenian culture in the dye recipes passed down through generations, in the cathedral designs echoed at Etchmiadzin, even in the stubborn resilience of a people who have weathered countless quakes, literal and metaphorical. From this shattered mirror of history, we turn next to a city whose disappearance lacks even the clarity of catastrophe, a place so thoroughly vanished, scholars still debate whether it was ever real at all. Silver, that's what drew the Greeks to Tartesos, the promise of rivers glittering with precious metal, enough to fill their ships and fuel their wars. Herodotus wrote of a wealthy kingdom beyond the Pillars of Hercules, where bearded Tartessian kings traded ingots with Phoenician merchants. The Bible's Book of Kings mentions Tarshish, a distant land sending silver, iron, tin, and lead to Solomon's Jerusalem. For centuries, Tartesos was the El Dorado of the ancient Mediterranean, a real place shrouded in the allure of myth. Then, around 500 BC, it vanished. No ruins, no records, just whispers in old texts and a mystery that's taunted archaeologists for generations. The search for Tartesos has taken scholars from the marshlands of Spain's Guadalquivir River to the sun-baked hills of Andalusia. Some believe it lies buried under modern Hulva, where excavations revealed Phoenician-style jewelry and Tartessian inscriptions, still untranslated. Others point to the Doñana National Park, where satellite images show strange circular structures beneath the wetlands, possibly the remnants of a grand harbor. The most tantalizing clue came in 1958, when a farmer near Seville unearthed the Carambolo treasure, 21 golden pieces adorned with intricate celestial motifs, proof of a sophisticated culture with ties to the wider Mediterranean world. Yet despite these finds, Tartesos refuses to give up its secrets. Was it a city, a kingdom, or just a loose network of trading posts that faded when the silver ran dry? What makes Tartesos so captivating isn't just its disappearance, but how its legend evolved. Greek poets spun tales of its king, Argantonio, who ruled for 80 years and sent silver to defend Phocaea against Persian invaders. Later Roman writers, like Pliny the Elder, claimed the Tartessians worshipped a god named Melkart in temples roofed with silver. but by their time, Tartesos was already a ghost, its memory tangled with Atlantis. Plato even suggested the two might be one and the same. Modern scholars dismiss this, yet the parallels are eerie. Both were wealthy civilizations that sank beneath the waves. Both left no physical trace. Theories about Tartesos' fate range from plausible to poetic. Some argue rising sea levels flooded its ports, a victim of the same climatic shifts that drowned Rungholt. Others blame the Carthaginians, who may have crushed Tartesos to monopolize Atlantic trade routes. But the most haunting possibility is the simplest. Tartesos didn't fall, it transformed. The same people who mined silver and traded with Phoenicians might have assimilated into Iberian tribes, their identity dissolving like salt in water. Unlike Divin or Merv, there's no clear stratum of destruction, no layer of ash or collapsed walls, just silence, yet Tartesos lingers in Spain's cultural DNA. Flamenco lyrics still sing of Tartesos who danced under the moon, and local festivals reenact mythical encounters between Phoenician sailors and Tartessian maidens. The real legacy of this lost civilization might not be silver or ruins, but the enduring power of a story too potent to fade. As we turn from the sun-drenched plains of Andalusia, our next destination holds a different kind of legend, one where the sea didn't just erase a city, but turned its downfall into a moral tale whispered through generations. The waves off Brittany's coast still whisper the name of Ys, a city said to have sparkled like a jewel before the sea claimed it. According to legend, Ys was built below sea level behind towering dikes, its gates locked with a golden key kept by King Gradlon. His daughter Dahat, reckless and proud, held wild parties where nobles indulged in every vice until one stormy night, she gave the key to a mysterious knight who turned out to be the devil himself. As he flung open the gates, the ocean surged in, swallowing Ys in an instant. Gradlon escaped on horseback, but Dahat drowned with her city, her fate immortalized in Breton ballads that claim she became a siren, luring sailors to their doom. What makes Ys more than just a cautionary tale are the grains of truth buried in its myth. Archaeologists point to real Bronze Age settlements now submerged along France's coast, where rising seas drowned thriving communities. At Douarnenez Bay, divers have found traces of ancient causeways and hearths beneath the water, suggesting Ys's legend might echo the fate of these early coastal towns. Even the story's timing aligns with known marine transgressions around 1200 BC, when climate shifts triggered catastrophic flooding across northern Europe. The tale's enduring power lies in its duality, a moral warning about hubris, but also a stark reminder of humanity's fragile relationship with the sea. Ys's legacy feels eerily prescient today, as modern cities like Venice and Miami grapple with rising waters. The old Breton legend takes on new urgency. The dikes that failed Ys mirror our own strained flood defenses, while Dahat's reckless parties evoke contemporary debates about short-term excess versus long-term survival. Locals still mark the city's memory with festivals where performers in flowing blue robes reenact the flood, a ritual that's evolved from folklore into a poignant climate allegory. Yet Ys refuses to be confined to history books. In 2019, a team using sonar imaging detected unusual geometric shapes beneath Douarnenez Bay walls, roads. The findings reignited age-old debates, whether these are the remnants of a real Ys or simply the human mind seeking patterns in nature. The city's grip on our imagination endures. Unlike Rungholt's tangible ruins or Vinter's debated location, Ys remains deliberately elusive, a story that floats between fact and fable. Its true power lies not in proving its existence, but in making us question, if the sea came for Ys, who's to say it won't come for us? From this drowned city of legend, we turn to a very different kind of disappearance, one where no flood or quake was to blame, but an invisible enemy that emptied streets and silenced homes. While Ys's fall was dramatic and moralizing, our next lost city succumbed to something far quieter, yet just as merciless: the slow, creeping shadow of disease. Skara Bree didn't collapse, it simply went to sleep. For over 4,000 years, the North Atlantic winds piled sand over its stone walls, sealing this Neolithic village in a natural time capsule until a brutal winter storm in 1850 ripped away the dunes like a blanket being yanked from a bed. What emerged wasn't just ruins, but a fully furnished snapshot of Stone Age life, complete with dressers, hearths, and even stone beds still lined with heather for warmth. Older than Stonehenge and the Great Pyramids, Skara Bree's 8 interconnected houses offer something rare: an intimate glimpse into how ordinary people lived 5,000 years ago, not as artifacts behind glass, but as homes frozen mid-moment. What makes Skara Bree extraordinary isn't just its age, but its startling modernity. The village design reveals a society that prioritized comfort and community. Each house follows the same blueprint: a central square room with a hearth for cooking, stone shelves built into the walls for storage, and beds positioned to avoid draft. But the real genius lies beneath a sophisticated drainage system of tunnels that may have carried running water, and even early toilets, suggesting sanitation knowledge lost for millennia after Skara Bree's abandonment. The houses were sunk into mounds called middens, compacted waste and seaweed for insulation, a technique that kept interiors warm against Orkney's biting winds. This wasn't crude survival, it was thoughtful urban planning. The mystery of why Skara Bree was abandoned lingers like the salt mist over the Bay of Scale. Unlike other lost cities, there's no evidence of war or catastrophe. Instead, clues point to a slower unraveling. Rising sea levels visible in the eroded layers around the site likely made farming harder, while shifting weather patterns could have disrupted fishing. The villagers may have simply packed their stone tools and walked away, leaving behind what they couldn't carry. Among the artifacts found were necklaces of animal teeth, dice like gaming pieces, and carved stone balls whose purpose remains debated. Were they weapons, ritual objects, or early art? The absence of human skeletons suggests no mass tragedy, just a quiet departure into the mists of prehistory. Skara Bree's preservation is a paradox. The same sands that buried it also protected it from the erosion that ravaged other Neolithic sites. Walking its low passageways today feels like trespassing in someone's home. The stone dressers facing doorways where families might have displayed treasured objects, the hearths blackened by ancient fires. Even the village layout speaks volumes. The houses cluster like a huddle of friends, linked by covered alleys that would have let neighbors visit without braving the cold. This wasn't just a settlement, it was a community built for endurance. Yet Skara Bree's greatest gift might be its humility. Unlike the pyramids or megaliths erected for gods and kings, this was a working-class village, its innovations born of daily necessity rather than grand ambition. The people here didn't build monuments, they built practicality into every stone. In that sense, Skara Bree feels oddly familiar. Their concerns staying warm, fed, connected, mirror ours across the chasm of centuries. As the sea whispers against Orkney's shores, it's tempting to imagine the last villager looking back one final time, unaware that their mundane world would one day become a window into humanity's shared past. From this windswept time capsule, we journey next to a very different kind of abandonment, not a gradual farewell to a village, but the dramatic flight from a jungle-shrouded metropolis where towering pyramids once cast shadows over a civilization's golden age. Deep in the Campeche jungle, where howler monkeys shatter the silence and roots coil around weathered stone, the ruins of Kalakmul rise like the bones of a forgotten giant. This wasn't just another Mayan city, it was a superpower, a kingdom that held the mighty Tikal in its grip for centuries, its influence stretching across the Yucatan Peninsula. At its peak, Kalakmul's rulers commanded over 50,000 subjects, its twin pyramids towering above the canopy like sentinels watching over a realm of splendor. Yet by the 9th century, the jungle had swallowed it whole, leaving its grand plazas and ball courts to the vines and spiders. When American botanist Cyrus Lundell stumbled upon the site in 1931, he found not just ruins, but a missing chapter of Mayan history waiting to be deciphered. What sets Kalakmul apart from other Mayan cities is the sheer scale of its ambition. The main pyramid, Structure 2, rises 55 meters taller than Rome's Colosseum, its steps adorned with intricate stucco masks of the city's patron deity, the serpent-headed god Kayawil. But the real treasure lies beneath. In 2012, archaeologists uncovered the tomb of Uknum Yichok Kayok, the Jaguar Paw Smoke King, whose reign marked Kalakmul's zenith. His burial chamber held jade masks so finely carved they seemed to breathe, along with shells from the Caribbean and obsidian from distant Teotihuacan, proof of a trade network spanning thousands of miles. Kalakmul's rivalry with Tikal reads like an ancient Game of Thrones. The two cities clashed in brutal wars, their battles recorded on stelae stone monuments that tell of sieges, betrayals, and royal bloodlines severed. In 656, Kalakmul's forces sacked Tikal, humiliating its king by dragging him through the streets in a cage. Yet this victory sowed the seeds of Kalakmul's own decline. Overextended and weakened by constant warfare, the city began losing vassal states. Then came the droughts, decades of withering heat that cracked reservoirs and emptied granaries. By 900 AD, the last scribe laid down his stylus, the last priest climbed the pyramid steps, and the jungle began its slow reclamation. Rediscovering Kalakmul forced historians to rethink the Maya. Unlike the isolated city-states once imagined, Kalakmul's glyphs revealed a complex web of alliances and vassal states, a geopolitical chessboard where diplomacy mattered as much as force. The city's name, meaning City of the Two Adjacent Pyramids, barely hints at its true legacy, a capital that shaped the destiny of the Mayan world for centuries, only to vanish so completely that even its location was forgotten. Today, visiting Kalakmul feels like stepping into a green cathedral. Scarlet macaws flash between ceiba trees, their cries mingling with the rustle of lizards scaling ancient walls. The climb to Structure 2's summit rewards the brave with a view of unbroken jungle, a reminder that nature always has the final word, yet Kalakmul's stones still whisper secrets. In 2019, LiDAR scans revealed thousands of hidden structures, farmsteads, terraces, even roads, proving the city was far larger than anyone guessed. With each discovery, the line between legend and history blurs, inviting us to wonder what other lost metropolises still sleep beneath the green veil of the Americas. From this jungle-cloaked empire, we turn to a city whose fate was sealed not by drought or time, but by the deliberate, calculated wrath of history's most ruthless conquerors. Where Kalakmul's story fades into mystery, our next chapter begins with fire, salt, and an annihilation so total it became a warning for the ages. Carthage wasn't just destroyed, it was erased with a fury that echoed through history. For over a century, this Phoenician jewel had been Rome's nightmare, its generals like Hannibal crossing the Alps with elephants to bring the Republic to its knees. But in 146 BC, the legions finally breached its walls after a grueling 3-year siege. What followed wasn't merely conquest, it was annihilation. Roman soldiers torched every temple, toppled every statue, and scattered salt in the fields to ensure nothing would ever grow again. The historian Appian described the carnage: flames so high they melted the gold in rooftop ornaments, mothers clutching children leaping into burning streets rather than face slavery. When the ashes cooled, Carthage's very name was struck from official records, as if it had never existed. Yet walk the grassy hills near modern Tunis today, and you'll find whispers of defiance beneath your feet. The circular military harbor, where hundreds of warships once docked in concentric rings, still traces its shape in the soil. Fragments of the Temple of Eshmun, where Carthaginians prayed for healing, now lie reassembled in museums, their columns scarred by fire but still bearing traces of blue and gold paint. Most haunting of all are the Tophet burial grounds, where small urns hold the cremated remains of children. Ancient sources claimed Carthaginians practiced child sacrifice during crises, though modern scholars debate whether these were ritual offerings or simply infant graves. Either way, these silent witnesses remind us that Carthage was more than Rome's rival. It was a complex civilization with its own gods, art, and innovations, from glass-blowing techniques to early insurance contracts for merchants. The tragedy of Carthage isn't just its violent end, but how thoroughly its perspective was lost. Nearly all surviving accounts come from Greek and Roman writers who vilified the city. Only a handful of Punic inscriptions survived the destruction, leaving historians to piece together Carthage's story from enemy propaganda and charred fragments. We know they wrote epic poems about Hannibal's campaigns, but not a single line remains. Their libraries, said to rival Alexandria's, were given as spoils to African princes, then vanished. Even the famous salting myth may be exaggeration. Ancient sources mention symbolic handfuls of salt, not the industrial-scale sterilization later legends suggest. What makes Carthage's legacy so potent is how it mirrors our own fears of cultural erasure. Rome didn't just want victory, it wanted to obliterate the memory of a people who dared challenge its supremacy. For centuries, Carthage became synonymous with treachery in Western texts, its achievements downplayed or ignored, yet the city refused to stay buried. Julius Caesar later rebuilt it as a Roman colony, and today, Tunisians proudly display Carthaginian motifs in their art and jewelry. The ruins themselves are UNESCO protected, their layered history Phoenician, Roman, Byzantine, Arab, telling a story of resilience no army could extinguish. From this scorched earth, we turn to a city that met a very different fate, not by sword or flame, but by the slow, inexorable shift of the rivers that once nourished it. Where Carthage's end was deliberate and dramatic, our next lost city slipped away quietly, its lifeblood diverted by nature's whims. Vijayanagara's ruins don't just stand, they sing. Even in silence, the stones of this once mighty empire hum with the echoes of a city so grand, Portuguese travelers in the 16th century compared it to Rome. Spread across the boulder-strewn landscape of Hampi in southern India, the remnants of Vijayanagara, meaning city of victory, tell a story of soaring ambition and sudden collapse. At its height in the 1500s, this was the beating heart of an empire that stretched from the Arabian Sea to the Bay of Bengal, a cosmopolitan hub where Persian horses clopped past Tamil poets and diamond merchants haggled beneath lotus-shaped domes. Then, in 1565, disaster struck. A coalition of sultanates crushed Vijayanagara's armies at the Battle of Talakota, sacking the city with such ferocity that chroniclers wrote of fires burning for months. But what truly killed Vijayanagara wasn't just war, it was water. The Tungabhadra River, its lifeblood for centuries, shifted course, leaving the crippled city to wither in the dust. Walking through Hampi today feels like stepping into a colossal open-air museum where nature and architecture wage a slow-motion duel. The Virupaksha temple's 50-meter tower still pierces the sky, its intricate carvings of gods and dancers defying 6 centuries of monsoons. Nearby, the Lotus Mahal's delicate arches, a fusion of Hindu and Islamic styles, stand as a testament to the empire's cultural fluidity. But the most awe-inspiring relic is the elephant stables, a row of 11 domed chambers where the empire's war elephants, armored and caparisoned, once awaited battle. Each dome is crowned with a different finial, suggesting these weren't just barns, but monuments to the beasts that powered Vijayanagara's military might. The stable's survival is ironic. While the city's human rulers faded into history, the memory of their elephants endures in stone. What makes Vijayanagara's story unique is how its physical layout mirrored its philosophical ideals. The city was divided into sacred and secular zones, with temples and bazaars carefully positioned according to ancient Hindu texts on urban planning. The royal center boasted a step tank so precisely engineered that monsoon rains would fill it to the brim without overflowing, while an underground aqueduct system cooled palaces long before modern air conditioning. Yet for all its sophistication, Vijayanagara's downfall reveals a universal vulnerability. When the river shifted, it didn't just cut off water, it severed the trade routes that had fueled the empire's economy. Farmers abandoned parched fields, merchants fled, and within decades, the city of Victory became a ghostly labyrinth of granite and dust. Modern archaeologists have uncovered surprises in Vijayanagara's ruins that challenge colonial-era myths. Far from being isolated, the city was a global player. Excavations unearthed Chinese porcelain, Venetian glass, and even a bronze statue of the Virgin Mary, evidence of thriving connections with distant cultures. The empire's tolerance was legendary. Inscriptions show endowments to Jain, Muslim, and Christian institutions alongside Hindu temples. This openness may explain why, unlike Carthage or Merv, Vijayanagara never truly died. Pilgrims kept the Virupaksha temple active even after the city's fall, and today, Hampi's ruins are a living landscape where farmers tend banana groves beside 15th-century pavilions, and backpackers from Mumbai to Munich clamber over rocks that once formed imperial watchtowers. The lesson of Vijayanagara isn't just about the fragility of empires, but the resilience of ideas. Its architectural innovations influenced temple design across South India for centuries, while its administrative systems shaped regional governance long after the empire's collapse. As the morning sun paints Hampi's stones gold, it's hard not to feel the weight of history, not as a distant echo, but as a continuum. The same river that abandoned Vijayanagara now draws tourists whose selfies and offerings keep the city's memory alive in ways its builders could never have imagined. From this tapestry of ruin and renewal, we turn northward to a city where the winds of the Eurasian steppe whisper a very different tale, one not of rivers changing course, but of empires clashing on the open plains. Sarai thrived where the Volga River kissed the Eurasian steppe, a city of gilded domes and bustling caravans where Mongol Khans held court over a mosaic of cultures. As the capital of the Golden Horde, it pulsed with the energy of merchants haggling in Persian, scholars debating in Arabic, and artisans crafting Chinese porcelain alongside Slavic silverwork. The traveler Ibn Battuta described its vast market stocked with Russian furs, Indian spices, and Venetian glass, proof that even the descendants of Genghis Khan couldn't resist the lure of commerce. But in 1395, the conqueror Timur rode west with fire and sword. His destruction was so thorough that within a century, even the city's exact location faded into legend. Today, archaeologists sift through two potential sites, Old Sarai near modern Volgograd and New Sarai in Astrakhan, each revealing fragments of a lost world. A shattered tile here bearing Arabic calligraphy, a Byzantine coin there stamped with Mongol symbols. What makes Sarai's story compelling isn't just its fall, but what it represented at its zenith. Unlike the rigid hierarchies of European capitals, Sarai embraced fluidity. A Russian prince might bow to a Mongol Khan in the morning, then dine with Italian bankers at sunset. The city's layout reflected this diversity. Islamic mosques stood beside Orthodox chapels, while Buddhist temples neighbored Nestorian Christian shrines. This cultural alchemy birthed innovations. Sarai's scribes developed a unique script blending Turkic runes with Arabic flourishes, and its armorers forged helmets fusing Mongol designs with Slavic craftsmanship. Even its demise carries a twist of irony. Timur's rampage, meant to humble the Golden Horde, inadvertently crippled the Silk Road itself, the very trade network that had fed his own empire's wealth. The search for Sarai's true location reads like an archaeological detective story. Soviet-era excavations at Old Sarai uncovered the foundations of a palace with underfloor heating, a luxury borrowed from Roman bathhouses, adapted for the steppes' bitter winters. Meanwhile, New Sarai's site yielded a trove of golden Pesa tablets, VIP passes used by Mongol officials to traverse the empire. Yet key questions linger. Why did historical accounts describe Sarai as white-walled when no traces of white plaster remain? Could the city have straddled both locations, shifting as the Volga's channels changed? The answers matter because Sarai wasn't just a capital, it was the nerve center of a nomadic empire that briefly tamed the wild frontier between Europe and Asia. Sarai's legacy survives in unexpected places. The Russian word for money, dengi, derives from the silver tanga coins minted here. The city's postal relay system inspired later networks from the Habsburg Empire to the Pony Express. Most hauntingly, its multicultural experiment foreshadowed modern debates about coexistence, proof that even in an age of conquest, diversity could flourish under the right conditions. As we brush the dust from these fragments, we're left with a vision not just of loss, but of what might have been. Had Sarai endured, could it have bridged east and west more permanently? The Volga's currents keep their silence. Now, our journey turns from the ashes of conquest to a city preserved by nature's fury, not burned, but frozen in time beneath a rain of volcanic fire, where frescoes capture moments of daily life as vividly as photographs. The first sign of doom may have been the earthquake's small tremors rippling through Akrotiri's whitewashed streets in the days before the eruption, then silence. For a moment, the Minoan city perched on Santorini's crescent-shaped island must have breathed a collective sigh of relief, but deep beneath the earth, pressure was building. Around 1600 BC, the volcano at Thera exploded with a force 50 times greater than Krakatoa, burying Akrotiri under 20 meters of ash so fast that frescoes still glistened with wet paint when archaeologists uncovered them 3.5 millennia later. Unlike Pompeii's tragic human casts, Akrotiri revealed no skeletons, just empty beds, abandoned looms, and storage jars stacked neatly as if waiting for owners who never returned. The townsfolk had clearly fled, but their city remained frozen in its final moments, a Bronze Age time capsule sealed by catastrophe. What makes Akrotiri extraordinary isn't just its preservation, but the vibrant world it unveils. Walk through its excavated lanes today, and you'll see 3-story buildings with intact staircases, advanced drainage systems, and windows positioned to catch the Aegean breeze. The walls dazzle with frescoes so vivid they seem painted yesterday, saffron-gathering monkeys, leaping dolphins, and a fleet of ships sailing past whimsical coastal towns. One masterpiece, the flotilla fresco, stretches across an entire room, depicting a joyous maritime procession with such detail that scholars can identify different ship types, evidence of Akrotiri's role as a trading hub linking Crete, Egypt, and the Levant. These weren't primitive islanders, they were cosmopolitan artists and engineers whose seafaring network rivaled later Phoenician routes. The parallels to Pompeii are inevitable, both cities entombed mid-breath by volcanic fury, but Akrotiri's story holds a twist. Thera's eruption didn't just destroy one city, it likely triggered the collapse of the entire Minoan civilization. Tsunamis radiating from the blast would have devastated Crete's northern ports, while ash blotted out the sun for years, causing crop failures across the Mediterranean. Some speculate Akrotiri's fate even inspired Plato's Atlantis myth, with its tale of an advanced island kingdom vanishing beneath the waves. Yet unlike Atlantis, Akrotiri's ruins offer tangible clues to daily life. A child's crib still coated in volcanic pumice, a pantry stocked with giant storage jars labeled in linear script, and most poignantly, a fresco of two boxers, their fists forever raised in playful competition. Modern excavations reveal how Akrotiri's citizens prepared for disaster. After earlier quakes damaged the city, they undertook massive reconstruction, reinforcing walls and upgrading plumbing, a testament to resilience in the face of looming peril. Their foresight saved countless lives when the final eruption came, allowing an orderly evacuation. But the volcano's parting gift was preservation. The same ash that obliterated Akrotiri also protected its wooden beams from decay, its murals from fading, and even its furniture from time's ravages. Today, as tourists peer into second-story windows that haven't held a human gaze in 36 centuries, the city whispers a dual lesson. Nature's power to destroy is matched only by its capacity to safeguard memory. From this ashen masterpiece, we cross continents to Africa's lost kingdoms, where stone walls rise not from volcanic graves, but from the red earth itself, monuments to empires that thrived where history once claimed only wilderness awaited. Great Zimbabwe rises from the African savanna like a riddle carved in stone, towering walls snaking across hilltops, enclosures guarded by monoliths, and towers standing sentinel over a kingdom that vanished without leaving a single written word. At its peak between the 11th and 15th centuries, this wasn't just a settlement. It was the epicenter of a trading empire that funneled gold, ivory, and copper from the continent's interior to ports on the Swahili coast. Portuguese explorers later dismissed the ruins as the work of biblical kings or Phoenician colonists, unable to believe Africans could engineer such marvels. But the truth is far more fascinating. Great Zimbabwe was entirely homegrown, a testament to the Shona people's ingenuity. Its dry stone walls stacked without mortar, yet enduring 7 centuries of wind and rain. What makes Great Zimbabwe so enigmatic isn't just its scale, covering nearly 800 hectares, but the intentional secrecy woven into its design. The city's most iconic structure, the Great Enclosure, features walls 11 meters high and 5 meters thick, their curves echoing the shape of nearby granaries. Inside, a lone conical tower stands with no clear purpose. Was it a grain silo, a phallic fertility symbol, or an astronomical marker? The absence of inscriptions or carvings deepens the mystery. Unlike Egypt's hieroglyphs or Rome's triumphal arches, Great Zimbabwe's builders left no names, no boasts of conquest, just stone whispering of a society that valued privacy as much as power. The city's wealth was undeniable. Archaeologists have unearthed Chinese celadon dishes, Persian glass beads, and even a 14th-century Arab coin minted in Kilwa, proof of trade networks stretching to the Indian Ocean. But the source of its prosperity was local. gold panned from the Zambezi River and mined from the surrounding hills. Modern scans reveal over 3,000 ancient mine shafts radiating from the city, their tunnels tracing veins of ore like roots drawing nourishment from the earth. This golden bounty fueled a complex economy where cattle were currency, and skilled artisans crafted jewelry so fine it rivaled Venetian goldwork. Yet by the mid-15th century, the mines ran dry, the trade routes shifted, and Great Zimbabwe's rulers simply walked away, leaving their stone capital to the elements. Theories about its abandonment range from climate change to political upheaval, but the most compelling clue lies in the dirt. Soil samples show the land around Great Zimbabwe was overgrazed by the city's vast cattle herds, stripping the soil of nutrients. Combine that with dwindling gold supplies, and you have a recipe for decline, not a sudden collapse, but a slow unraveling as merchants and craftsmen drifted to greener pastures. The Shona people never forgot their ancestral capital, though. Oral traditions kept its memory alive, and when European colonizers tried to claim the ruins as non-African, local clans produced genealogies linking themselves directly to the city's builders. Today, walking through Great Zimbabwe's ruins feels like stepping into a conversation between earth and sky. The walls' chevron patterns catch the sunlight at dawn, while the acoustics of the eastern enclosure amplify whispers into echoes, perhaps intentional design for royal proclamations. The most haunting space is the hill complex, where rulers likely held court. Its boulder-strewn pathways lead to a natural throne carved by wind and time, overlooking a kingdom that once commanded the trade of half a continent. Great Zimbabwe's legacy transcends archaeology. Its image graces modern Zimbabwe's flag and currency, a symbol of resistance against colonial narratives that denied Africa's architectural prowess. The ruins challenge us to reconsider what civilization looks like. A society can flourish without pyramids or written records, leaving its mark instead in silent stone and whispered tradition. As the wind hums through the empty enclosures, it carries a reminder: some histories aren't written in ink, but in the land itself. From this stone testament to African ingenuity, we turn to a city where conquest left not just ruins, but a skyline of hollowed-out churches, a place where faith and war collided so fiercely that its very name became a lament. Where Great Zimbabwe's end was quiet and gradual, our next chapter begins with the thunder of siege engines and the cries of a kingdom under siege. Ys' ruins stand like a shattered crown atop the windswept plateau where Armenia meets Turkey, its silhouette of hollowed-out churches and palaces cutting a jagged profile against the horizon. Known as the City of 1001 Churches, this was no pious exaggeration. At its zenith in the 10th and 11th centuries, Ys rivaled Constantinople in splendor, a cosmopolitan capital where Armenian kings, Byzantine diplomats, and Persian merchants mingled beneath domes adorned with frescoes of saints and kings. The cathedral, engineered to defy earthquakes with its innovative pointed arches and ribbed vaults, inspired Gothic architects centuries later. Yet today, its vaults yawn open to the sky, its walls scarred by Mongol swords and the relentless tremors that shook the land like a dog worrying a bone. What makes Ys' decay so haunting isn't just the scale of its ruins, but the layers of loss they represent. The city didn't fall once, it endured death by 1,000 cuts. First came the Byzantines in 1045, stripping its treasures. Then the Seljuk Turks in 1064, leaving the cathedral's famed silver altar a melted memory. Earthquakes in 1319 toppled what war hadn't, and by the 18th century, even its name had faded from maps. Yet amidst the rubble, whispers of its golden age persist. The Church of St. Gregory still boasts frescoes of biblical scenes in vivid reds and blues, their pigments mixed with crushed lapis lazuli from Afghanistan. The merchant quarters streets, etched with grooves from countless cartwheels, trace the ghostly outlines of a bazaar that once traded silk from China and amber from the Baltic. Ys' most poignant relic isn't stone or paint, but absence. The city's manuscripts, once housed in scriptoria that rivaled those of Jerusalem, were scattered to Venice, Yerevan, and Moscow, their pages preserving Ys' voice even as its walls fell silent. Modern pilgrims to the site often kneel beside the Church of the Redeemer, split cleanly in half by the 1319 quake, as if the earth itself wished to demonstrate how swiftly glory can fracture. The irony is cruel. Ys' architects pioneered seismic-resistant designs, yet their masterpieces now serve as case studies in the limits of human ingenuity against nature's fury. But Ys' true tragedy lies in its liminality. Straddling the modern Turkish-Armenian border, its ruins became a political pawn, access restricted for decades. Conservation efforts are fraught. Some walls crumble from neglect, while others bear the marks of clumsy Soviet-era repairs. Yet the city's legacy endures in unexpected ways. Armenian artists still replicate its intricate Kochkar crosses, their lace-like carvings a testament to Ys' craftsmanship. Digital reconstructions breathe life into its plazas, allowing virtual visitors to walk streets where generals and poets once clashed and collaborated. As the wind howls through Ys' empty arches, it carries echoes of a question. Can a city truly die if its art, its innovations, its stories outlive it? The answer lingers in the cathedral's shadow at dusk, when the setting sun sets the stone ablaze in hues of honey and rust, a fleeting resurrection, proof that even in ruin, Ys refuses to be forgotten. From this battlefield of empires and elements, our journey descends to a city claimed not by quakes or invaders, but by the patient, insistent embrace of the sea, where the waves didn't just erase a civilization, but preserved it with a tenderness the surface world could never match. Beneath the crystal-clear waters off Greece's Peloponnese coast, Pavloptri's ghostly outlines emerge like a sketch drawn on the seafloor, a grid of stone foundations stretching across 5 millennia. Unlike cities swallowed by volcanic fury or sacked by invaders, this Bronze Age settlement met a gentler fate, gradually surrendering to rising seas around 1000 BC. Its neatly arranged streets, courtyards, and even two-story buildings now lie just 4 meters underwater, preserved by the Mediterranean's saltless embrace like a time capsule sealed in liquid amber. Discovered in 1967 by oceanographer Nicholas Fleming, Pavloptri holds a singular distinction. It's the oldest submerged city ever found, predating Plato's Atlantis by over 2,000 years. What makes Pavloptri extraordinary isn't just its age, but the snapshot it offers of daily life frozen mid-moment. Unlike the chaotic ruins of earthquake-shattered ports or war-torn citadels, here the past feels eerily orderly. Archaeologists mapping the site have identified 37 structures, including a central megaron, a hall that likely served as a ruler's residence, pottery workshops with kilns still intact, and a complex drainage system that channeled rainwater through terracotta pipes. Most haunting are the graves' rectangular tombs carved into bedrock, their lids long since washed away to reveal skeletons curled in eternal sleep. These weren't hurried burials during catastrophe, but intentional restings in a community that expected permanence. The city's drowning was anything but sudden. As sea levels crept upward over centuries, Pavloptri's residents adapted, raising floors, reinforcing walls, and eventually abandoning lower districts to the tide. Unlike Rungholt's catastrophic flood or Vinter's legendary punishment, this was a slow farewell, giving generations time to pack their looms and fishing nets. The absence of weapons or burned layers suggests no violent end, just a pragmatic retreat to higher ground. Even the artifacts left behind, a child's ceramic doll, a loom weight etched with spiral patterns, hint at lives interrupted, not obliterated. Modern technology has peeled back layers of Pavloptri's story with startling clarity. Underwater drones equipped with sonar have mapped the city's full extent. 9 acres of urban planning so advanced, it rivals later Minoan centers. In 2016, archaeologists uncovered a previously unknown plaza lined with what appear to be market stalls, their stone counters grooved to display goods. Nearby, a circular structure may have been an early lighthouse or shrine, its orientation aligned with the summer solstice sunrise. But the real revelation came from sediment cores. Pollen analysis showed Pavloptri's hinterland was once thick with olive and fig trees, proving this wasn't just a fishing village, but a thriving agricultural hub. The quiet tragedy of Pavloptri lies in its anonymity. Unlike Troy or Mycenae, no Homeric epics sing its name. Its people left no written records, just mute stones and pottery shards stamped with symbols we can't decipher. Yet this very obscurity makes it a democrat's Pompeii. Without kings or conquests to dominate the narrative, we glimpse ordinary Bronze Age lives. The fisherman whose net weights still sit where he dropped them, the potter whose fingerprints linger in clay, the child who scrawled zigzag lines on a broken dish. These fragments whisper that history isn't just made by emperors and armies, but by countless unnamed hands building walls, baking bread, and watching the sea creep ever closer to their doorsteps. As sunlight filters through the water, dappling Pavloptri's ruins with liquid gold, the city offers a silent lesson in resilience and release. Its people didn't fight the rising tide. They adapted, then moved on, leaving their homes to become a kingdom for octopuses and sea bream. In an era of climate anxiety, that choice feels achingly relevant. Pavloptri's greatest gift might be its lack of drama, a reminder that sometimes survival isn't about victory or defeat, but knowing when to let go. From this underwater requiem, we turn to a city whose stones tell a very different story, not of gradual surrender, but of sudden silence. Where Pavloptri's streets still curve gently beneath the waves, our next lost city stands frozen in arid stillness, its secrets locked in a script no one can read. Mohenjo-Daro emerges from the dust of Pakistan's Indus Valley like a meticulously planned dream. A city so advanced, its sewer systems and standardized brick sizes put contemporary Bronze Age settlements to shame. Built around 2500 BC, this sprawling metropolis boasted wide, grid-patterned streets, multi-story homes with indoor bathrooms, and a gravity-driven drainage network that would impress modern engineers. Yet the most haunting detail isn't its sophistication, but its silence. Over 400 symbols etched into seals and pottery remain undeciphered, the Indus script defying every attempt at translation. Without a Rosetta Stone to unlock its secrets, Mohenjo-Daro's people speak to us only through their bricks and beads, their voices muffled by millennia. Walk the ruins today and you'll stumble over paradoxes. The Great Bath, a monumental public pool lined with bitumen to prevent leaks, suggests ritual purity was central to civic life. Yet no temples or royal palaces dominate the skyline. The city's wealth is evident in lapis lazuli from Afghanistan and carnelian from Gujarat, but burials reveal startling equality. No lavish tombs, just simple graves with similar grave goods. This was a society that mastered urban planning without pyramids or ziggurats, its power structures hidden in the mundane, uniform weights for trade, neighborhood wells spaced at regular intervals, even trash collection systems. Then around 1900 BC, Mohenjo-Daro emptied, not with fire or war, but with eerie deliberation. skeletons found in alleyways show no violent wounds, just sudden death, possibly from poisoned wells or disease. The river that sustained the city, the mighty Saraswati, may have shifted course or dried up, choking trade routes. Another theory points to climate change. Sediment cores reveal a centuries-long drought that could have turned fertile plains to dust. But the most chilling clue lies in the ruins themselves. Layers of silt suggest catastrophic flooding, not once but repeatedly, as if the Indus itself grew tired of human ambition. What sets Mohenjo-Daro apart isn't just its mystery, but its modernity. The city's obsession with water management, from reservoirs to street-side drains, mirrors today's megacities battling floods and scarcity. Its lack of obvious rulers challenges our assumptions about how ancient societies organized themselves. Even its decline feels uncomfortably familiar, a warning about environmental fragility and the limits of adaptation. Unlike Egypt's pharaohs or Mesopotamia's kings, the people of Mohenjo-Daro left no boastful inscriptions, just a whisper in the archaeological record. Civilization doesn't need monuments to be profound. From this enigma of baked brick and silence, we cross oceans and millennia to the Andes, where another ancient city defies expectations, not with its complexity, but with its impossible antiquity. Where Mohenjo-Daro's story ends in questions, our next chapter begins with a civilization so old, its existence rewrote the timeline of the Americas. Carol rises from Peru's Soup Valley like a mirage of antiquity, a city so ancient, its stone plazas and stepped pyramids were already ruins when the first pharaohs laid foundations for Egypt's old kingdom. Dating back to 2600 BC, this sprawling complex of sun-baked adobe and rock predates the Inca by nearly 4,000 years, standing as the oldest known city in the Americas. What stuns archaeologists isn't just its age, but its sophistication. 6 monumental pyramids arranged with celestial precision, circular sunken courtyards for communal gatherings, and a network of irrigation canals that turned desert into farmland. The North Chico people built all this without pottery, without weapons, and most baffling of all, without any known system of writing. Their legacy is carved not in hieroglyphs, but in the very bones of the land. Walk through Carol today, and the silence is profound. Unlike later Andean sites scarred by conquest, there are no traces of battle, no shattered fortifications, no mass graves. Instead, the ruins whisper of a society that thrived on trade and ritual. Excavations revealed piles of anchovy bones and mollusk shells from distant coasts, proof of a maritime exchange network spanning hundreds of miles. In the plaza of the Great Pyramid, archaeologists uncovered flutes made from condor bones, their haunting notes likely accompanying ceremonies under the watchful eye of the Soup River. The city's layout reveals a mind-bending understanding of acoustics. Stand at the center of the main amphitheater, and your voice carries effortlessly to every tier, an ancient megaphone engineered millennia before microphones. The mystery of Carol's abandonment lingers like the coastal fog that blankets the valley each morning. Around 1800 BC, the North Chico simply walked away, leaving behind intact buildings and neatly stored artifacts. No ash layers suggest volcanic doom, no skeletal remains hint at plague. Some scholars point to climate shifts, El Niño events that may have disrupted both fishing and farming. Others argue the civilization didn't collapse so much as evolve, its people dispersing to seed later cultures like the Chavin and Moch. The most poignant clue lies in the ruins themselves, a single child's footprint preserved in wet clay, a fleeting moment frozen as the city emptied. Carol's rediscovery in the 1990s upended textbooks. Before its pyramids were dated, historians assumed complex societies in the Americas lagged millennia behind Eurasia. Now, we know civilizations rose independently on opposite sides of the globe, their architects unaware of each other's existence. The North Chico's achievements, mathematical precision in pyramid alignments, hydraulic engineering that sustained thousands, challenge our assumptions about how cities begin. Without kings or armies to compel labor, what inspired such collective effort? The answer might lie in Carol's most curious artifacts, knotted cords called quippers, later used by the Inca for record-keeping. Were these the North Chico's writing, their way of encoding knowledge in fiber rather than ink? As the desert wind hums through Carol's empty plazas, it carries a lesson about time's fluidity. The same sands that buried the city also preserved it, gifting us a glimpse of a pacifist civilization that measured wealth in music and shared harvests rather than gold. Unlike Rome's bloody spectacles or Egypt's obsession with the afterlife, Carol's monuments celebrate harmony between earth and sky, between people and place. Its silence isn't absence, it's an invitation to listen differently, to hear history not in the clash of swords, but in the echo of a condor bone flute playing a melody lost for 4,000 years. From this enigmatic cradle of Andean civilization, our path turns toward a very different kind of loss, not the quiet fading of a culture, but the violent erasure of knowledge itself. Where Carol's end remains a puzzle, our next chapter begins with flames licking at parchment and the calculated destruction of a university that once illuminated the medieval world. Flames engulfed Nalanda's great library in 1293, but the real tragedy wasn't the fire, it was the silence that followed. For over 700 years, this sprawling university in northern India had been the Oxford of the ancient world, its lecture halls buzzing with debates between Hindu scholars and Buddhist monks, Persian astronomers and Chinese linguists. At its peak, Nalanda housed 10,000 students and 2,000 teachers across a campus dotted with meditation halls, observatories, and dormitories cooled by ingenious water channels. Its library, the Dharma Gunj or Mountain of Truth, boasted 9 million manuscripts, entire philosophies, scientific treatises, and literary masterworks meticulously copied onto palm leaves. Then came Bakhtiar Khilji, a Turco-Afghan warlord who set the library ablaze, allegedly because the smoke from burning Buddhist scriptures would take as many months to clear as the piles of books had taken years to accumulate. The flames burned for 3 full moons, turning centuries of accumulated knowledge into ash that drifted over the Bihar plains like black snow. What makes Nalanda's destruction so haunting isn't just the scale of loss, but what we know was destroyed. Tibetan monk and historian Taranatha later described texts on medicine that detailed cataract surgeries performed with curved needles, astronomical charts predicting eclipses to the minute, and philosophical discourses reconciling reason with faith. The university's curriculum was staggeringly diverse: grammar, logic, metaphysics, even vocational courses in pottery and metallurgy, all taught through a system of rigorous debate where teachers could lose their positions if defeated in intellectual combat. The Chinese pilgrim Xuanzang, who studied here in the 7th century, wrote of professors who could recite entire volumes from memory, their voices rising and falling in lecture halls adorned with copper statues that turned to face the sun. Yet Nalanda's ruins today whisper of resilience as much as ruin. The red brick stupas still stand in silent rows, their niches once housing statues of the Buddha in his many guises: teacher, healer, protector. Excavations have revealed classrooms arranged in a mandala pattern, symbolizing the universe's interconnectedness, and a network of wells that supplied water even during droughts. Most poignant are the votive tablets left by students' small clay plaques inscribed with prayers for wisdom, some still bearing thumbprints where anxious fingers pressed too hard. These weren't just scholars, they were dreamers who believed knowledge could outlast empires. The university's legacy thrives in unexpected ways. When Singapore designed its flagship Nalanda University in 2010, architects studied the ancient campus's cooling techniques and communal layouts. The original's emphasis on interdisciplinary learning, where medical students debated ethics with poets, inspired modern liberal arts programs from Tokyo to Toronto. Even the burning itself carries a bitter lesson. The only surviving copies of many Nalanda texts turned up centuries later in Tibetan and Indonesian monasteries, proof that ideas once set loose refused to be fully erased. As the morning sun paints Nalanda's broken arches gold, the site poses a quiet challenge to our digital age. In an era where cloud storage promises permanence, how do we safeguard the fragile ecosystems of thought that universities nurture? The fire that consumed Nalanda didn't just destroy books, it severed a living chain of mentorship, debate, and collective inquiry that took generations to rebuild. Yet the votive tablets endure, their tiny fingerprints reminding us that education isn't just about preserving facts, but kindling the human capacity to wonder. From this monument to the fragility and resilience of knowledge, we turn next to a legend where truth and fantasy blur, a city that never existed, yet shaped the course of history more powerfully than many real places. Where Nalanda's ruins stand as stark testimony to loss, our next destination lies in the shimmering space between desire and deception, between the maps of explorers and the dreams of kings. The story of El Dorado begins not with a city, but with a man, a Muisca chieftain who once glittered like the sun itself. On the shores of Lake Guatavita, high in Colombia's Andes, this golden figure would board a ceremonial raft laden with emeralds and gold dust, his body entirely coated in precious metals. As the raft reached the lake's center, he'd plunge into the waters, washing away his gilded armor as an offering to the gods. Spanish conquistadors, hearing fragments of this ritual from captured natives, twisted it into something grander, a kingdom paved with gold, hidden deep in the jungle. Thus, El Dorado was born not as a place, but as a fever dream that would drive thousands to their deaths. For 2 centuries, expeditions hacked through Amazonian vines and scaled Andean peaks, lured by tales of golden temples and streets lined with bullion. Sir Walter Raleigh mounted 2 disastrous voyages, losing his son in the search. German explorer Philip von Hutten wandered the Orinoco Basin for years, only to be beheaded by rivals upon his return. The irony: the Muisca people did possess staggering gold-working skills. Their intricate votive figures and golden alloy masks still dazzle in Bogotá's Museo del Oro, but their wealth was spiritual, not material. The true El Dorado was never a city, but a ceremony celebrating the sacred bond between humans and nature. Recent archaeology, however, has uncovered a tantalizing twist. In 2019, LiDAR scans revealed a vast network of terraces and roads in Colombia's Mosquito Coast, remnants of the Tairona civilization, contemporaries of the Muisca. These weren't gold-paved metropolises, but sophisticated settlements that traded emeralds and crafted golden artifacts. Meanwhile, in the Amazon, researchers found evidence of sprawling pre-Columbian towns with advanced agriculture, proving the jungle wasn't the empty wilderness conquistadors assumed. These discoveries suggest El Dorado's myth may have sprung from real, if misunderstood, glimpses of indigenous prosperity. El Dorado's enduring power lies in its duality. It's both a cautionary tale about colonial greed and a mirror for our own obsessions, from oil rushes to crypto booms. The name itself has become shorthand for any unreachable prize, from Hollywood dreams to Silicon Valley unicorns. Even pop culture can't resist its pull. Indiana Jones sought it, Disney animated it, and historians still debate its origins. The Gilded Chieftain's ritual has been reduced to a kitschy tourist reenactment at Guatavita Lake, yet the legend's core truth lingers. Wealth, when pursued blindly, often dissolves like gold dust in water. From this mirage of greed and gold, we turn to a city whose treasures were real, and whose plundering reminds us how easily history's masterpieces can vanish into the desert winds. Where El Dorado was a dream, our next lost city stands as a stark monument to the cost of human conflict. Palmyra rises from the Syrian desert like a mirage of columns and sandstone, its golden arches framing the horizon like a gateway between worlds. For centuries, this oasis city thrived at the crossroads of empires, where Roman engineers built temples to blend with Arab traditions, and merchant caravans paused beneath palm groves to trade silks from China and spices from India. The Temple of Bel's courtyard once echoed with prayers in Aramaic, Greek, and Latin, while Queen Zenobia's defiant reign turned Palmyra into a brief but brilliant rival to Rome itself. Then, in 2015, the unthinkable happened. Militants bulldozed the Temple of Bolshemin, detonated the Arch of Triumph, and beheaded Palmyra's 82-year-old antiquities director, called al-Assad, when he refused to reveal where hidden artifacts were stored. The world watched in horror as live-streamed videos showed sledgehammers reducing 2,000-year-old statues to dust, not collateral damage in war, but deliberate erasure of history itself. What makes Palmyra's tragedy so gut-wrenching isn't just the scale of loss, but the precision of the violence. The militants didn't just bomb randomly, they targeted symbols of cultural fusion, the very elements that made Palmyra extraordinary. The Temple of Bel's inner sanctuary bore carvings of Jupiter alongside Mesopotamian sun gods, proof that this was no provincial Roman outpost, but a laboratory of coexistence. Even the city's layout defied categorization. Its grand colonnade stretched over a kilometer, lined with tariff inscriptions in Pomeran script, a unique Aramaic dialect that served as the Silk Road's linguistic bridge. Palmyra wasn't just beautiful, it was a living argument that diversity could be a source of strength, not division. Yet amidst the rubble, glimmers of resilience emerged. Before his murder, al-Assad and his team smuggled hundreds of artifacts to safety, including priceless Pomeran busts now displayed in Damascus National Museum. Digital archaeologists from Oxford's Institute for Digital Archaeology used 3D photogrammetry to create exact replicas of the destroyed Arch of Triumph, reconstructed from tourist photos and archival sketches. The replica now tours global museums, its plastic composite echoing the original's defiance. Even nature plays its part. Satellite images show the desert slowly reclaiming vandalized sites, sand softening the scars like a balm over wounds. Palmyra's lesson isn't just about destruction, but about what endures. When Russian and Syrian forces recaptured the city in 2016, they found graffiti scrawled by militants, but also, hidden beneath, faint traces of Roman-era price lists still etched into stone. The city's underground tombs, though looted, still hold frescoes of banquet scenes where the dead were depicted feasting alongside gods, a reminder that Pomerans saw eternity as a celebration, not an end. Today, as conservators painstakingly reassemble shattered columns using ancient Roman numbering systems found on the stones themselves, Palmyra whispers a paradox. Civilizations can be murdered, but their DNA lingers in the land, waiting for kinder hands to revive them. From this wounded oasis, where the ghosts of caravans still seem to shimmer in the heat, our path leads north to a city that refused to fall, a fortress where the walls have witnessed 5 millennia of empires rising and fading, yet still stand guard over the turbulent Caucasus. Where Palmyra's arches bear the marks of modern conflict, our next lost city stones remember battles so ancient they've melted into myth. Derbent's walls rise from the Caspian shore like the clenched teeth of history itself. A stone barricade stretching 40 kilometers from sea to mountain, so thick that 10 horsemen could ride abreast along its battlements. For 5,000 years, this fortress city has stood sentinel at the world's narrowest pass between the Caucasus and the sea, a bottleneck where empires clashed like waves against rock. The Persians called it the Iron Gate, the Arabs Bab al-Abwab, Gate of Gates, while Russian Tsars prized it as the linchpin of their southern frontier. Today, its medieval heart beats beneath modern apartment blocks, where grocery stores and playgrounds sit atop layers of forgotten sieges and buried bazaars. What makes Derbent extraordinary isn't just its longevity, but how each conqueror left their mark without erasing the past. The 5th century Sasanian fortress, with its twin stone walls and 30 watchtowers, still looms over the city, its masonry so precise that not even a dagger's blade could slip between the fitted stones. Beneath it, archaeologists found a maze of Zoroastrian fire temples, their altars aligned with the sunrise on Noah's Persian New Year. Later, Arab invaders converted these into mosques, carving Quranic verses beside ancient Persian reliefs of winged lions. By the 10th century, Derbent's markets buzzed with Khazar honey, Viking amber, and spices from the Silk Road, its cobbled streets echoing with a dozen languages. The city's secret adaptation. When Mongol hordes stormed the walls in the 13th century, Derbent's rulers simply paid tribute and stayed neutral, a survival tactic repeated through Ottoman sieges and Persian campaigns. Even the Russian Empire's 18th century conquest left the old cityscape largely intact, its labyrinth of vaulted caravanserais and hammams repurposed for new masters. Modern construction projects routinely unearth surprises. A Soviet-era drainage dig revealed a hidden cistern from the 6th century, its plaster still bearing the fingerprint of the mason who sealed it. Yet Derbent's greatest treasure might be its living continuity. In the shadow of the Naran Collar citadel, silver-haired men still play Nard backgammon on stone benches where Silk Road merchants once haggled. The Juma Mosque, founded in 734 AD, remains in use, its courtyard shaded by a centuries-old mulberry tree. Even the local Lezginka dance preserves rhythms that would have been familiar to Alans, Huns, and Seljuks. This isn't a museum frozen in time, but a palimpsest where the medieval and modern coexist, where kids kick soccer balls against walls that once shuddered under Mongol catapults. The real mystery lies beneath the pavement. Ground-penetrating radar has mapped a subterranean Derbent, secret tunnels for military sorties, collapsed merchant quarters, even rumored chambers where the Khazars hid their famed lost library. Archaeologists debate whether to excavate or preserve these layers in situ, a dilemma that captures the city's essence. Is Derbent a living community or a historical artifact? The answer, like its walls, stands defiantly in between. From this unconquerable gateway between sea and steppe, we turn to a city that surrendered not to armies, but to the slow, green fingers of the swamp, a place where stone canals and coral reefs tell a story of isolation and mystery far from the Silk Road's clamor. Nan Madol's coral black walls rise from the turquoise shallows of Micronesia like a puzzle carved by giants. 93 artificial islands stretch across the lagoon, connected by canals so precise they seem drawn with a ruler, a city built not on solid ground, but atop reefs laboriously packed with basalt boulders, some weighing 50 tons. The locals call it the Venice of the Pacific, but that comparison barely scratches the surface. Venice had centuries of Mediterranean engineering to draw from. Nan Madol emerged in isolation, a staggering feat of logistics by the Sordalor dynasty around 1200 AD. How did they move these volcanic megaliths without pulleys or metal tools? Why construct a ceremonial capital where tides gnaw at the foundations twice daily? The answers lie buried beneath centuries of tangled mangrove roots and whispered oral traditions. Walking Nan Madol's waterlogged ruins today feels like stepping into a dream half-remembered. The royal mortuary of Nan Dawas looms over the lagoon, its 25-foot walls stacked in alternating log-like layers, each basalt prism fitted so tightly that legend claims the builders used magic to soften the stone. Inside, hidden chambers once held the bones of chiefs, guarded by carved spirit masks now eroded into eerie anonymity. Nearby, the Darong Canal slices through the complex like a ceremonial highway, its waters still navigable at high tide, though the only traffic now is the occasional kayak or curious reef shark. Archaeologists mapping the site have uncovered vaults filled with sea turtle bones and pearl shell ornaments, clues to a society that worshipped ocean deities even as they defied the sea's hunger for their city. The abandonment of Nan Madol is as enigmatic as its construction. When European explorers stumbled upon the ruins in the 1800s, the local Pohnpeians spoke of the Sordilor's tyranny and a rebellion led by the warrior Kalakmul. But soil samples tell a subtler story. Layers of silt suggest rising sea levels flooded taro fields, while pollen analysis reveals deforestation as islanders cut trees to transport more stone. The city's downfall may have been ecological, a cautionary tale of overreach in a fragile environment. Yet even in ruin, Nan Madol commanded awe. Japanese occupiers during World War II avoided the site, convinced it was haunted, while modern Pohnpeians still leave offerings at the moss-covered altars. What lingers isn't just the mystery, but the audacity. Nan Madol's builders reshaped their world with nothing but muscle and patience, stacking stones as precisely as any medieval mason, all while surrounded by an ocean that could erase their work in a storm. The city's canals aren't just waterways, they're defiance in stone, a declaration that even in the Pacific's vastness, humans could carve order from chaos. Yet the mangroves keep creeping, their roots prying apart walls with slow, green fingers, a reminder that no empire, not even one built on coral and willpower, outlasts nature's patience. From this water-locked labyrinth, where the past hums in the salt wind and the click of hermit crabs on stone, we turn to a city where death came not from the sea's slow encroachment, but in the silent, relentless march of disease, a vanishing where the streets didn't flood or burn, but simply emptied, one fevered breath at a time. Epidamnos was meant to last forever. Founded by Greek colonists from Corinth and Corfu in the 7th century BC, this Adriatic port thrived as a crossroads of Mediterranean trade, its docks welcoming ships laden with olive oil from Attica, amber from the Baltic, and slaves from the hinterlands. Aristotle praised its model constitution. Playwrights set comedies in its bustling agora. Yet today, its name barely lingers in history books, its ruins buried beneath the modern Albanian city of Durrës, where apartment blocks and cafes stand atop layers of forgotten glory. Unlike cities swallowed by volcanoes or erased by conquest, Epidamnos didn't so much fall as fade, its identity scrubbed away by the tides of politics and time. Walk through Durrës today and fragments of the past surface like whispers. Beneath a nondescript parking lot lies the floor of a Roman amphitheater, once the Balkans' largest, where gladiators battled before 15,000 spectators. The city's Byzantine walls, built with stones pillaged from Epidamnos temples, still zigzag through back alleys, their mortar mixed with crushed pottery from ancient taverns. Most haunting is the way the past intrudes on the present. A 5th century mosaic of Orpheus playing his lyre was discovered beneath a hotel basement, perfectly preserved under centuries of silt. These aren't curated archaeological sites, they're accidental survivors, jostling for space in a living city that's forgotten their stories. The mystery isn't why Epidamnos declined, but why its memory vanished so completely. Unlike Pompeii or Carthage, its end wasn't dramatic. The Romans renamed it Dyrrhachium, cementing its role as a key military port. Caesar and Pompey clashed nearby in their civil war. Later, Byzantine emperors and Norman adventurers fought over its harbor. With each new conqueror, the Greek city's identity blurred further, like a palimpsest scraped too many times. By the Middle Ages, even scholars confused it with nearby Apollonia, another Greek colony. The final insult came in the 20th century, when communist-era construction in Durrës bulldozed entire neighborhoods without archaeological surveys, entombing Epidamnos' last visible traces under concrete. Yet the city's legacy lingers in unexpected ways. The grid plan of ancient Epidamnos still subtly shapes Durrës' street layout, an invisible blueprint beneath the chaos of modern traffic. Local fishermen occasionally net Roman coins in their catch, tiny bronze echoes of long-dead merchants. Most poignant is the survival of the Via Egnatia, the Roman road that began at Epidamnos docks, stretching all the way to Constantinople. Though the city's name faded, its arteries still pulse across the Balkans, a reminder that even the most forgotten places leave fingerprints on the world. From this quiet vanishing, we turn to a city where history's tides didn't erase the past, but left it eerily intact, a place where Greek columns still stand guard over a peninsula where empires rose and fell like the Black Sea storms. Where Epidamnos dissolved into the landscape, our next lost city wears its layers like a coat of many colors, each thread a different conqueror's dream. Chersonesus emerges from Crimea's rugged coastline like a time traveler frozen mid-step, its Greek columns standing shoulder to shoulder with Byzantine mosaics and Slavic fortifications, all layered over one another like pages in a well-worn book. Founded in 421 BC as an outpost of the Delian League, this city began as a scrappy colony clinging to the Black Sea's edge, its first settlers carving quarries into the limestone cliffs to build walls against Scythian raids. Yet over 16 centuries, Chersonesus evolved into something extraordinary, a cultural chameleon that adapted to every empire that claimed it, from Roman amphitheaters to Gothic basilicas to Mongol siege engines, each leaving their mark without fully erasing what came before. Step into the excavated streets today, and you'll find history preserved with eerie clarity. The Greek theater, hewn into a hillside in the 4th century BC, still echoes with the ghostly laughter of audiences who once watched comedies under the stars' its stone seats, now warmed by the same sun that baked them 2,400 years ago. A few paces away, the Basilica of 1935, named for the year of its discovery, stands as a testament to Byzantine devotion. Its floor a kaleidoscope of geometric mosaics featuring crosses woven into intricate meanders, a visual metaphor for faith's endurance. But the real marvel lies underground, a network of crypts where early Christians hid during Roman persecutions, their walls etched with crude fish symbols and prayers in half a dozen languages. What makes Chersonesus unique isn't just its longevity, but its refusal to be pigeonholed. The city's museum displays a single slab bearing inscriptions in Greek, Latin, and Hebrew, evidence of a multilingual society where merchants, scholars, and mercenaries rubbed shoulders. During excavations in 2007, archaeologists uncovered a Mongol-era smithy built atop a Byzantine chapel, which itself sat on a Roman bathhouse. Each layer tells a story of pragmatic survival. When the Huns sacked the city in the 5th century AD, residents simply rebuilt using debris from ruined temples. When Slavic princes took control, they repurposed Greek columns as church altars, turning pagan symbols into Christian sacraments. The city's abandonment in the 15th century feels almost anticlimactic. No earthquake or invasion delivered the final blow. Chersonesus simply faded as trade routes shifted to Ottoman-controlled ports, yet its ruins became a silent classroom for later empires. Russian Tsars sent artists to sketch its arches as inspiration for neoclassical palaces, while Soviet archaeologists used its stratigraphy to train generations of researchers. Today, as the Black Sea laps at its ancient docks, Chersonesus faces a new challenge. Political tensions over Crimea's status have turned this archaeological treasure into a diplomatic pawn, with Ukrainian and Russian scholars sparring over its interpretation. Standing at the edge of the excavated agora, where the scent of time drifts from cracks in the stones, Chersonesus offers a quiet lesson in resilience. Unlike Pompeii's frozen tragedy or Carthage's fiery end, this city's power lies in its continuity, proof that civilizations aren't erased so much as transformed, their essence carried forward in mortar and memory. As the late afternoon sun gilds the basilica's broken arches, the stones seem to whisper that no empire truly falls. It merely hands the baton to the next runner in history's relay. From this layered testament to endurance, our journey turns southward to a desert city whose disappearance holds a different kind of mystery, not the slow fade of changing fortunes, but a vanishing so sudden it left breakfast dishes still set on the tables. Where Chersonesus whispers of adaptation, our next lost city speaks of abandonment in mid-breath, its secrets preserved under the Kenyan sun. Gedi's ruins emerge from Kenya's coastal forest like a whispered secret, its coral walls draped in vines and shadows. Founded in the 13th century by Swahili merchants, this once thriving port town was a jewel of the Indian Ocean trade, where African gold, Arabian incense, and Chinese porcelain changed hands beneath the shade of baobab trees. The air hummed with the chatter of merchants haggling in Swahili, the clink of cowrie shells used as currency, and the call to prayer from the great mosque's intricately carved mihrab. Then, around the 17th century, Gedi's streets fell silent. No ash layers or shattered gates mark its end, just empty houses with dishes still on shelves, jewelry abandoned in drawers, and mosques left mid-prayer. The jungle swallowed the city whole, preserving its mysteries until British colonists stumbled upon the ruins in 1924, baffled by a sophisticated urban center where history books claimed only primitive tribes had lived. Walking through Gedi today feels like stepping into a suspended moment. The coral ragstone walls, built without mortar yet standing 7 centuries later, reveal a mastery of architecture adapted to the coastal climate. Ventilation niches channel ocean breezes, while sunken courtyards collect rainwater. The Palace of the Sheikh boasts a private bathroom with an advanced flush toilet, its design centuries ahead of European sanitation. Nearby, the great mosque's pillar tombs bear inscriptions in elegant Arabic script, honoring merchants who likely traded as far as India and Persia. But the most haunting finds are the small, intimate ones. A child's toy carved from ebony, a set of ivory dice, a brass wedding ring still tucked in the corner of a bedroom. These weren't just traders, they were families who lived, loved, and then vanished without explanation. Theories about Gedi's abandonment weave through history like the roots strangling its walls. Some point to the Portuguese, whose brutal 16th century campaigns disrupted Swahili trade networks. Others blame the Wazimba, a warlike people from the interior who raised other coastal towns. But the most compelling clue lies in the land itself. Core samples from nearby mangrove swamps show a prolonged drought around 1600, a climatic shift that may have dried up Gedi's wells and withered its crops. Unlike Venice or Amsterdam, this was a city built on freshwater springs, not the sea's edge when the water vanished. survival became impossible. Yet the lack of skeletons or signs of violence suggests no frantic exodus, just a slow, sorrowful departure as families packed what they could carry and walked away from their homes forever. Jedi's greatest enigma isn't its disappearance, but its invisibility. No surviving Swahili chronicles mention it, and Portuguese records ignore it entirely. This wasn't some backwater, its artifacts prove it was a wealthy hub. So why the silence? Some scholars speculate Jedi was a secret city, its location deliberately kept off maps to protect its lucrative trade in gold and ivory from rivals. Others suggest its name was lost in translation, its true identity buried under colonial mispronunciations. The most poetic theory comes from local Jiriyama elders, who whisper that Jedi was never meant to be found by outsiders, that the spirits of its ancestors cloaked it in vines until the world was ready to understand its legacy. As the sun filters through the forest canopy, painting the ruins in dappled gold, Jedi's lesson lingers. Civilizations don't always end with fire or sword. Sometimes they slip away like tides, leaving behind whispers in coral and stone. Its rediscovery shattered racist myths about Africa's past, proving the Swahili coast was a cosmopolitan crossroads long before European ships rounded the Cape. Today, as archaeologists use ground-penetrating radar to map unexcavated sectors, Jedi's full story remains half-told, a reminder that history's pages are still being written, even in the places time forgot. From this green sanctuary of secrets, our journey reaches its final chapter, a city that lives more vividly in poetry than in stone, a place where reality and legend blur like mist over Mongolian grasslands. Where Jedi's abandonment feels like a quiet surrender, our last lost city embodies the fleeting nature of human ambition itself. Xanadu lives in two worlds, one of crumbling earthworks under the vast Mongolian sky, the other in the opium-fueled verses of Samuel Taylor Coleridge, where stately pleasure domes decree beside sunless seas. The real Shangdu, as Mongol rulers called it, was no mere poet's fantasy, but the summer capital of Kublai Khan's Yuan dynasty, a sprawling complex where Chinese pavilions met nomadic tents, and scholars debated Confucian texts alongside Persian astronomers. Founded in 1256, this was where the conqueror who subdued China came to remember the open steppe, hosting feasts under silk canopies while herds of white horses grazed in pastures encircled by marble walls. Today, the site near Duolan County is a whisper of its former self, grassy embankments tracing palace foundations, fragments of glazed tiles winking from the soil like broken dreams. What made Xanadu extraordinary wasn't just its luxury, but its role as a cultural laboratory. Unlike the Forbidden City's rigid symmetry, Xanadu blended Han Chinese architecture with Mongol practicality. The main palace, though roofed with imperial yellow tiles, stood atop a platform designed for quick disassembly, a nod to the nomads' distrust of permanent structures. Marco Polo, who visited in 1275, described a marble pleasure pavilion lined with gilded serpents, its chambers hung with ermine and sable. Yet just beyond these opulent halls, yak hide tents housed Mongol nobles who still preferred the felt and wool jur to stone walls. This duality defined Xanadu, a seat of power that never quite surrendered its nomadic soul. The city's downfall was as swift as its rise. When the Yuan dynasty fell in 1368, Ming soldiers systematically destroyed Shangdu, viewing it as a symbol of foreign oppression. The wooden palaces burned easily, the irrigation channels feeding its gardens were choked with debris, yet the myth proved harder to erase. Tibetan monks passing through the ruins in the 17th century spoke of a sunken city, where spirits recited lost sutras tales that likely inspired Coleridge's famous fragment. Modern archaeology confirms the poetic license. Excavations revealed a network of underground pipes for heated baths and ceramic shards bearing Arabic numerals, evidence of the Silk Road's far-reaching connections. Xanadu's legacy lingers in the tension between memory and material. The actual ruins are modest, an UNESCO-listed field of hummocks and ditches, yet its cultural footprint is vast. Chinese filmmakers recreated its splendor for blockbusters. British romantics spun it into metaphor. Even the name became shorthand for unattainable paradise, borrowed for everything from Hollywood estates to a groundbreaking movie studio. The irony is poignant. A city built to showcase Mongol might is now remembered most vividly through the lens of an English poet who never set foot there. Standing on Xanadu's windswept plain today, the mind's eye reconstructs what the earth has reclaimed. Here, Kublai Khan received Marco Polo's tales of Venetian canals. There, Tibetan lamas debated Taoist sages under pear trees now long dust. The pleasure dome is gone, but the questions remain. Can grandeur outlast its stones? Can a place exist more powerfully in imagination than in brick? Xanadu answers silently, its true monument not in fragmented walls, but in the human hunger to conjure Eden from the ashes of history. From sunken ports to jungle-shrouded temples, these 30 lost cities whisper a truth as old as civilization itself. Nothing we build is meant to last forever. Yet their crumbling walls and buried artifacts tell a story far richer than mere decline. They reveal how cultures rise, adapt, and ultimately transform. Whether swallowed by the sea like Vinter, abandoned to the desert like Yuba, or erased by conquest like Carthage, each city leaves behind fragments of its soul. A child's toy in Jedi, a merchant's scales in Merv, an unfinished fresco in Akrotiri, these intimate glimpses remind us that history isn't just about empires and armies, but about the everyday lives that once pulsed within these forgotten streets. What makes these ruins so compelling isn't just their tragedy, but their stubborn refusal to disappear completely. Timgad's library may stand empty, but its grid of streets still teaches us about Roman urban ideals. The vines choking Kalakmul's pyramids haven't erased the political dramas carved into its stelae. Even Xanadu, more legend than stone, lingers in our collective imagination as a symbol of ambition's fleeting nature. These cities challenge us to reconsider what lost truly means. Are places really gone when their innovations echo in modern engineering, their art inspires contemporary creators, or their failures inform how we tackle climate change today? The lesson woven through these ruins isn't one of despair but perspective. Skara Bree's Neolithic farmers and Vijayanagara's temple builders both faced challenges we recognize: rising seas, shifting trade routes, the delicate balance between growth and sustainability. Their solutions, whether ingenious or inadequate, become mirrors for our own societal choices. When we stroll through our bustling cities today, we're walking atop someone else's future ruins, participating in a cycle as old as human settlement. The question isn't whether our cities will fade, but what legacy they'll leave when they do. Perhaps the most enduring gift of these lost cities is the humility they inspire. Great Zimbabwe's towers and Mahandraparvota's reservoirs prove that brilliance flourished in places history once overlooked. Palmyra's tragic vandalism reminds us that cultural treasures demand vigilant protection. And Rungholt's drowned bells, forever tolling beneath the waves, warn against arrogance in the face of nature's power. These aren't just relics, they're invitations to look closer, think deeper, and recognize the threads connecting past, present, and future. As the shadows lengthen across these 30 fragments of vanished worlds, they leave us with a paradox. The more we uncover about lost cities, the more we find ourselves reflected in their stories. Whether it's the quiet resilience of Skara Bree's villagers or the cosmopolitan bustle of Merv's bazaars, these echoes across time remind us that humanity's essence changes far less than our surroundings. So the next time you pass a construction site or cross a city square, pause for a moment. The ground beneath your feet will one day whisper its own story to future explorers. What will it say about us? Which of these lost cities spoke to you most powerfully? Was it the watery mystery of Vinter, the scholarly silence of Nalanda, or perhaps the jungle-cloaked enigma of Kalakmul? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear which fragments of the past resonate with you. And if this journey through fallen empires and forgotten streets left you hungry for more, don't forget to explore our other deep dives into history's hidden corners. Until next time, keep listening to the whispers of the past. They have far more to say than you